This is an attempt to really simplify down to its bare essentials what we know from international comparisons about what works in driving improved performance. I'm just going to summarize it quickly. There's three elements to do with standards and accountability. You do need globally benchmarked standards. I think the common standards that have been developed in this country look really promising in this case. People have really looked to see, well, when we say a child is good at science in America, is that the same as being good at science in Singapore or Finland or Tokyo? So globally benchmarking standards, there's no real excuse for not doing that in a globalized world. Then systems need data, and there's lots of really big improvements in data systems over the last 10 or 15 years. So education systems are becoming much better informed than they were 10 or 20 years ago, when they were very often guessing or drawing on small samples and relatively limited research studies. So the quality of data seems to be a really critical issue here. And again, there's a big drive to improve the quality of that through the Race to the Top program here in the US. So you'd say that was a real positive for the US. And getting data that is usable as close to real time as possible. So you're not waiting for post hoc analysis of the data, although that is important, but the policymakers can be informed fairly close to real time what's happening in their system. And then this third thing about the accountability is, do we really care what happens to every single child? Obviously the rhetoric says we care, but when you look at the practice, do we really care? The great systems make sure that every child is on the agenda. When a child falls behind, they do something about it. They try to get it to catch up. Finland is really good at this. So this is very, very important because we lose children along the way. When I was a teacher in the late 70s, early 80s, I taught my class history, and some of them learnt that history and some of them didn't. And then I went on and taught the next lesson, and some of them learnt it and some of them didn't. And then it came to the end of the year, and some of them were doing really well and some of them were doing not at all well. And what did I say? I didn't say I didn't teach that sequence of history correctly. I said he doesn't do his homework, or he doesn't like history, or his parents don't care, or they never take him to museums. So I made a whole set of, it seemed perfectly plausible to me at the time, but actually there are excuses for not having every child on the agenda. I didn't say, how could I have taught that differently to get everybody up to the standard, which is what I should have been doing. But I think I was fairly typical for teachers in Britain and America at that time. There's a Charlie Brown cartoon that I quote a lot on this, where at the beginning of the week he says to the other children, I'm going to teach the dog to sing by the end of the week. And they have a bet. They say, you'll never be able to do that. And the end of the week, they go back to him and say, the dog can't sing, we've won the bet. And he says, no, I didn't promise the dog would learn to sing, I only promised to teach him. That's what I was doing with my history class. So this is a really big psychological shift, that we're going to get everybody to high standards. And it goes with the other achievement gap, because we lose potential all along the way. We're losing people who might have been great at a whole number of things quite early on because they don't have the confidence, or we've lost them. We haven't addressed their learning challenges early enough, and so we end up with big problems.